Rumsfeld says it'll take U.S. ground forces to hunt down bin Laden, and he prefers they bring him back dead. A new anthrax mystery only deepens tonight as an elderly victim dies. The holiday getaway is underway. Tonight, who's going home and who's staying home? Also, the Market Watch, a banner day for sales of anything red, white, and blue.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. An official spokesman for the Taliban said today the world should forget about the September 11th attack on America. The U.S. response was to press ahead with the war against the Taliban and attempts to track down and, if possible, kill the mastermind of the attack, Osama bin Laden. As CBS News national security correspondent David Martin reports, the U.S. is now taking steps to prevent bin Laden and his top lieutenants from slipping out of Afghanistan while preparing to send in the Marines.
Marines off the coast of Pakistan getting ready to move into Afghanistan. Defense Secretary Rumsfeld, who went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina for a demonstration of Special Operations Forces, won't say when or even if the Marines are going in, but he did say it will take ground troops to hunt down Osama bin Laden and the Taliban.
We will have to put forces on the ground that are necessary to enable us to do it.
A Saudi Arabian newspaper reported bin Laden has told his aides his life is near the end and they should shoot him if he is about to be captured. And in an interview for tonight's 60 Minutes 2, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld said he would rather see bin Laden killed than captured alive.
But you just as soon see him dead.
Oh, my goodness gracious, yes. After what he's done, you bet your life.
Another piece of the U.S. military campaign came to light when a small special operations helicopter like this crash-landed inside Afghanistan. There were several injuries, but both the crew and the helicopter were rescued by a C-130 transport plane. Another sign of how freely U.S. forces now operate inside what was once Taliban territory. In one of the few parts of the country they still control, a Taliban spokesman said it was time to forget about the September 11th attacks, which drew this response from the Deputy Secretary of Defense.
We will not forget about September 11th. We are moving on, and I think before long the world will forget about the Taliban.
Opposition forces have the remaining pockets of Taliban fighters surrounded at Kunduz in the north and Kandahar in the south.
We would like to kill as many as we can or capture them while they're in places where they can be located.
There are reports tonight the Taliban fighters in Kunduz have agreed to surrender, but U.S. officials are skeptical that surrender would also include the hardline followers of bin Laden. Dan?
David Martin reporting live from the Defense Department. In Afghanistan's still Taliban-controlled southeastern corner today, an English-speaking representative of the Taliban's spiritual leader, as he calls himself, said that God has given them direct orders to retreat no further. The man's open-air news conference took place about 60 miles from the Taliban stronghold of Kandahar. CBS's Alan Pizzi was there.
In an extraordinary departure from its normally secretive ways, the Taliban today sent the personal spokesman for Mullah Mohammed Omar to meet the Western press in southern Afghanistan. He said Osama bin Laden is not in territory under Taliban control.
They have a secret life, and everybody cannot see him. And there were special channels to contact him.
The unprecedented presence of so many foreign reporters was a source of fascination for Taliban fighters, and local residents lined the walls of the compound in which the press conference was held. The rare glimpse for the outside world into the mindset of the targets of the war on terrorism was called to discount reports the Taliban is about to give up Kandahar.
And this is not something of our choice, but this is something compulsory and something ordered by Almighty Allah.
Watched over by grim-faced bodyguards, the 25-year-old spokesman conceded that the movement now controls only 4 or 5 of Afghanistan's 28 provinces. The spokesman accused the United Front of looting and killing in areas it had seized from the Taliban, and said people in Kandahar province had asked the Taliban to stay and protect them.
We hope that Almighty Allah will help us to secure our nation and our religion.
And Taliban forces won't be laying down their guns to take part in talks to arrange a grand council for a future Afghan government. However unrealistic the Taliban's claims and ambitions may appear to be, what is clear from the press conference is that in their minds at least, the war to bring an end to the hardline movement is not even close to being over. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Spin Boldak, Afghanistan.
President Bush made a pre-Thanksgiving visit today to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the Army's 101st Airborne Division. The Commander-in-Chief performed a little KP duty, carving and serving turkey to the troops before joining them for lunch. The president later told the assembled 101st that U.S. forces have made a good start in Afghanistan, but he said many terrorists are still on the loose.
We will find and destroy their network piece by piece. The enemy hopes they can hide until we tire. But we're going to prove them wrong. We will never tire, and we will hunt them down.
The president warned again that victory over the overall terror network may come slowly, but added, and I quote, "We will prevail." The number of dead from inhalation anthrax in this country since October now stands at 5. The latest victim, an elderly woman, died today in Connecticut. This is the second baffling death, with no one able to say how the victim was infected. CBS's Jim Stewart reports investigators are again scrambling for answers.
So far, the best lead federal investigators have in the death of the latest anthrax victim may be in her garbage. The elderly victim had 2 weeks of trash awaiting disposal at the time of her death, and agents are now busily poking through it for clues. Other than that, however, officials admit they're stumped.
It's rather extraordinary if you think about a 94-year-old woman in Oxford, Connecticut getting anthrax.
The preliminary assumption is that the victim, Ottilie Lundgren, came in contact with a piece of anthrax-contaminated mail, a letter that perhaps brushed against one of the known anthrax letters.
I don't think that this patient, 94-year-old woman from Oxford, was a target of terrorism. Is there cross-contamination? Is there some way that she has been infected through the mail or some other source?
But already the Connecticut case sounds eerily similar to that of Kathy Nguyen, who died last month 70 miles away in New York. Agents have still not determined how Nguyen contracted inhalation anthrax. There was no trace of the disease at her place of work, in her apartment, or in her mail. And that's what's confusing investigators. Of the 18 known anthrax victims thus far, 10 can be explained because they were associated with postal facilities that anthrax letters passed through, while 6 others were exposed at the media outlets that received some of the letters. Nguyen, however, fits into none of those categories, and thus far, neither does Lundgren. Maybe, one theory goes, the women were guinea pigs used by the anthrax suspect to test his goods, although there's not a shred of evidence to support that. Another theory is just as troublesome. Perhaps it takes far less anthrax than first thought to make someone sick, which means that the postal system may be far more at risk than anyone first suspected. Jim Stewart, CBS News at the FBI.
It will be up to the medical and criminal investigators to try to determine how Lundgren became infected. Tonight, our friends and neighbors are left to wonder, how could it happen here? CBS's Mika Brzezinski reports from a quiet and deeply concerned community in Connecticut.
Tiny Oxford, Connecticut, population about 9,000, a one-stoplight small town where the barber shop is also the post office. Now fear is as common as the American flag.
Put Oxford on the map. That's what's scary. If it could happen in Oxford, it's going to happen anywhere.
Ottilie Lundgren was a lawyer's widow who lived alone. Her pastor, Richard Measle, was visibly shaken by her death.
She belonged to Jesus, and he is safe in his grace.
Health officials are baffled as to how Lundgren could have contracted the disease, and so are her friends.
She's an ordinary person who lived an ordinary life.
Right.
A week ago today, she was out with a group of seniors. They say her days were simple. She went to church, she went to get her hair done.
A wash and set. Once a week she came in. She was here about an hour. I think she looked forward to getting out every week.
Lundgren's home is now a crime scene. Friends, family, even her hairdresser are being questioned by the FBI. The possibility of germ warfare has made its way to Oxford.
We all have to be very careful when we open our mail, or even to pick it up to see where the mail is coming from.
Connecticut's governor urges calm, but fear travels fast in a small town.
We don't know where to start, what to think, how to act, what to do. Most people don't know what to say. We didn't think in our lifetime we'd see anything like this. It's frightening.
More than 1,100 postal workers in Connecticut have been offered protective treatment, and the letter carrier who delivered Lundgren's mail is already on the antibiotic Cipro. Dan.
Mika Brzezinski in Connecticut. Many Americans are trying not to forget, but to push back in their minds concerns about anthrax and terrorism, hitting the roads and taking to the skies to celebrate Thanksgiving. CBS's Bob McNamara reports tonight on the start of the first major holiday travel weekend since the mass murders of September 11th.
Neither the music nor the free massages were the magic to fill two Dallas-Fort Worth airports with travelers. Ticket lines saw a trickle where holiday crowds stood a year ago. Parking lots were ghostly empty.
I have no regrets about traveling. I'm not scared to fly.
But air travel across the country was expected down as much as 27% from last year. In Chicago, O'Hare Airport saw fewer travelers than usual. In Los Angeles, lines were below normal even with cheaper fares.
Basically, the airlines are pricing now not to make money, but to get people back on board aircraft.
Today's unprecedented security measures have put many off air travel.
I mean, I appreciate all the security and stuff, but it truly is just a hassle.
If Bill Bailey was going home for the weekend, he was probably going on the ground. The AAA Travel Club estimates that close to 90% of this holiday's travelers will jam the nation's roads.
It's driving cheap, it's wonderful.
Falling gas prices, down into the double digits in Georgia now, are part of the reason. But fear of flying is a big factor, too.
I guess it's really not safer than going by the airlines, but I feel safer for some reason.
And from Manhattan to Missoula, Amtrak was anticipating its busiest holiday season ever. With 75,000 added seats, trains were sold out mostly along the Northeast Washington to Boston corridor. Many were taking a train for the first time.
It's just the fear of flying. You know, it's scary. It's scary.
All aboard! What is not in all the travel numbers are those saying goodbye. The millions of Americans who have decided to stay at home.
Bye-bye.
Bob McNamara, CBS News, Dallas.
And up here on the pre-Thanksgiving CBS Evening News, why they're singing Bye Bye This American Pie.
This Market Watch segment is sponsored by the Travel Industry Association of America.
Americans are asking what is expected of us.
What is expected of us?
What is expected of us?
We ask you to live your lives.
Do your business.
Do your business around the country.
Fly and enjoy.
And enjoy America's great destination spots.
Take your family.
Enjoy life.
The way we want it to be enjoyed.
Greatness is found.
Greatness is found.
When American character.
And American courage. American courage.
Can overcome American challenges.
And we will.
And we will.
On the CBS Market Watch, stock prices closed lower on this eve of Thanksgiving. The Dow Industrials lost 66 points. The Nasdaq was off 5. The holiday shopping season semi-officially begins Friday. CBS's business correspondent Anthony Mason reports the hot items this year include anything that looks like or tastes like America.
After 16 years in business, New York's Little Pie Company isn't very little anymore.
During Thanksgiving week, we do about 10,000 pies.
10,000.
You've probably seen them. That's their pumpkin pie on the cover of Time magazine. But owner Michael Deraney says it's apple pie sales that are suddenly soaring.
This year, we've seen a 20% increase.
Old-fashioned and all-American. Clients are even ordering them with flags.
We have never done something that's been so patriotic.
It's more than just comfort food for a healing nation. This holiday season, Americans seem to be more cautious about their spending on everything except the Star-Spangled Banner.
Macy's has more than 250 stores across the country. What's selling?
Anything red, white, and blue. Americana, the patriotic feeling, is definitely what people want now.
When Macy's noticed the clothes of designers who fly the flag flying off the shelves, Ronnie Taffet says they opened patriotic shops in all their stores.
We've got everything red, white, and blue. Statue of Liberty, tote bags, ties.
And for some, buying is a patriotic duty.
I think it's a good idea for everyone to buy at least one thing to remember.
At his gas station in Rye, New York, Ed Shaw tried to sum up the mood in a sign.
I was put up to let everybody know that we're here, we're Americans. Let's support our country. Whether you're living here, support our country.
In a season of uncertainty, businesses are finding red, white, and blue is the one sure thing. This holiday, retailers are hoping the patriotic spirit will put shoppers in a buying mood. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
America's economic slowdown has now hit the people who make some of our money. The U.S. Mint has begun laying off more than 300 workers because the demand for new coins has plummeted. One reason, they say, is that cash-short Americans are emptying their change jars, putting more old coins back in circulation. If you aren't giving thanks that you live in this country, you may want to consider this. It's feared tonight that as many as 30 Cubans who were trying to reach the United States in a small boat died in the attempt. Coast Guard searchers spotted a capsized boat about 50 miles south of the Florida Keys today, but found no sign of any survivors. In Spain's Canary Islands off Morocco, at least 3 people were killed by flash floods that swept through a park popular with European hikers and campers. Spanish officials say the bodies of 3 Germans were recovered. 4 other tourists are missing. Dutch researchers report the strongest evidence yet that aspirin-like pain relievers may help prevent Alzheimer's disease. The study looked at medical records of thousands of people over age 54. It found those taking drugs such as Advil, Motrin, and Aleve for at least 2 years were 80% less likely to develop Alzheimer's. The FDA today approved the first drug that directly attacks sepsis. That's a bloodstream infection that kills tens of thousands of Americans each year. The drug, called Zycrest, will be shipped to hospitals within a few days. Next here on the CBS Evening News, Eye on America. They shared a loss September 11th. Now they have found each other.
Dad and my dad's still missing.
Cleanup and recovery teams will be on the job even on Thanksgiving Day in the still smoking, sometimes still burning ruins of the World Trade Center. 10 weeks after the attack, the official count of dead and missing is down. In late September, the estimated toll was 6,500. Now, after adjusting for errors and duplications, officials put the number at about 3,900. We end our CBS broadcast with a story of survival and revival amid the loss. It's the story of 2 brave girls, still in high school, and offering a living lesson in the true meaning of Thanksgiving, as CBS's Lee Cowan reports in tonight's Eye on America.
In high schools all across the country this week, classrooms are emptying for the Thanksgiving holiday. And for 2 students in Warwick, New York, senior Jessica Williamson and junior Ashley Fodor, giving thanks this year means giving thanks for one another.
I know people look at us and don't know how we're doing it.
It is coping. On September 11th, both their fathers, Battalion Chief John Williamson and Lieutenant Michael Fodor, were 2 of the hundreds of firefighters who rushed into hell, and 2 of the hundreds who never came home.
It's like you wake up and my dad couldn't have died, you know. He was He was only 46. He was so young and so full of life, and he was like the wrong person to die that day.
In fact, 8 people from their town died that day, 6 of them firefighters, just like their dads. So it's no surprise that the flags still fly here and that memorials are still in storefront windows. After all, remembering is part of coping. But for Jessica and Ashley, so is Sherry.
It's just nice to know that you're going through the same thing, and a lot of people are.
Strangers before September 11th are now friends looking for answers.
I remember saying goodbye, and then I just turned my head and I was filling up a drink, and I just saw him walk out the door.
Yeah.
And that's the last time I saw him.
My dad was such a big kid, and he was just fooling around with me, and we were pretending to fight, and then he had to go. And I was so glad, I have that, no one can ever take that away from me.
But in their shared despair, there is one difference. Jessica's dad was found. Ashley's dad was not.
The day they found him, and we got the news, I couldn't believe it. It seemed like my whole world came to a screeching halt.
Yeah. The way I feel, from when he was missing, I had hope for ever, and then when you kind of have to face reality, it's only gotten worse, but it comes in swings.
And out of all the difficult questions, there is one that haunts them both.
I wonder who saw my dad's face and just went, we're gonna get out. So, and I just wonder who has the image of my dad.
Yeah.
And I know they're out there, and I wish I would have been able to hear from somebody that would have just said, I saw him.
Yeah.
2 faces that disappeared into a crowd that brought 2 strangers together.
I'll walk you out. Okay.
A little comfort during the holidays that already seem empty enough. In Warwick, New York, Lee Cowan for Eye on America.
Strangers, now friends, part of our world tonight. I'll be back shortly here on CBS with 60 Minutes 2. David Martin's interview with the Secretary of Defense about the hunt for Osama bin Laden and how it might end. Also, what happens after the U.S. deals with bin Laden? Bob Simon found an answer. A bloody blueprint for wiping out terrorism. Also tonight on 60 Minutes 2, New York's firefighter bagpipers. That's tonight at 8, 7 Central. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. Back in a few on 62 and wishing you all a thoughtful, meaningful Thanksgiving.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the internet and on our interactive partner, America Online at keyword CBS News.
Experience you can trust. CBS News.